Enix said that they are open to the possibility and the idea of using crowdfunding to translate various games and projects that they are working on with the purpose and intent of putting it out there for people outside of Japan. Now, this is a subject that will be met with great polarizing opinions on both sides, whether they agree or disagree with such a notion of a large, multi-million-dollar AAA publisher / developer utilizing crowdfunding to make their projects a reality outside of Japan. Now, I've actually talked about this very idea months ago, because I've heard so many fucking bullshit and ass-backwards excuses from companies saying why they weren't able to translate a game, why they weren't able to go and give it a domestic release here, and there, and there, and there. And I always disagreed with them because I've seen much smaller companies with much smaller budgets that were capable of doing this on a grand scale. Yet they weren't able to get all their eggs in a basket and do it themselves. It just seemed ridiculous. It seemed lazy. And I know that there is one way to look at this. Well, it is a gamble. And this is true. For any company out there, it is a gamble to invest in a team, to translate, to code, to program, and to release this game and put it out there for international fans to pick up, and then they don't make their money back. That is always a gamble that every single company makes when they release something outside of their homeland. This is the truth. But with a company like Square Enix, especially the Squaresoft portion of Square Enix, a vast majority of their fans are actually outside of Japan. If you look at their sales, for their biggest titles and even their smallest titles, they make more money and sell more copies outside Japan than they do within their homeland. So you can argue those facts and figures with them right there about that. But regardless of all this, it's something that now could be considered by many companies out there. I've long said that somebody like Sega, for example, who has kept so many of their titles over in Japan only, and is driven me up a wall. Just between the Yakuza series and the Phantasy Star series, I can't understand why the fuck Phantasy Star is not making its way outside of Japan, because I know tons of motherfuckers who would cream their jeans over the idea of getting one of the newest installments and entries in that long-running fucking beautiful franchise, yet are left out in the cold with fucking blue balls. Gaming blue balls, to be exact. And me being a very big fan of the Yakuza series, it kills me that there's several entries that I probably won't ever get my hands on. Ever. Hell, I think about the the plethora of titles that are Japan exclusive, both new and old, that I'm never going to be able to play unless fans translate it. I've talked about in the past romhacking.net, and I've gone there more times than I can fucking count to go and play translated ROMs on emulators, and these are people who are just fans like you and me who work their asses off to make the most accurate translation a reality for fans, and the companies behind these could have just done it themselves and this would have all been fucking gravy, but no, it had to be done this way. It's just, it's fucking nightmarish. But now they're considering crowdfunding. I mean, is that even really okay? You're expecting fans to go and foot the bill for something that you should already be doing. And to a certain degree, this just seems like a slap in the face, like you don't have faith in your own product. Now, I do like the idea that you're at least giving a viable option, so there is that. I love the idea that there is at least an option, and an option that I would certainly support if they weren't willing to pursue any other viable avenue. To go and make this a game that we can go and pick up on store shelves here in our own country. So, I have to ask the question, would you actually support any kind of crowdfunding efforts from a big AAA publisher, such as Square Enix. And we're going to focus on Square Enix, but I mean just any in general. You know, it could be Capcom, it could be, Sega, it could be any company out there. Just think of anyone who's primarily in Japan, and most of their efforts are in Japan, and it's all exclusive there. And if it's a small title, like, if Nintendo went and said, hey, we really want to bring out this Captain Rainbow game, but we don't think that a lot of people would pick it up, so we're actually going to pursue crowdfunding. Which is kind of ridiculous to think about, because, again, Nintendo has more money than they know what the fuck to do with. But if they don't think that the sales will match up with the amount of money that they have to go and pour into it, then that's the avenue that they have to go after. I think that this is also their way of testing things out to see how many fans actually give a shit enough for them to even think about, you know, the foreseeable future for this franchise outside Japan or even here in Japan. You know, and I hate the idea that it even has to come to something like this, because I think back in the 90s whenever there was like the big JRPG boom on PlayStation 1, and how PlayStation 2 also had a big fucking boom of them. But so many titles were getting released, and we're talking middle market games, we're talking about AAA games, we're talking about niche games, getting printed and pressed releases, physical games that now you wouldn't even see a fucking digital variant of it, let alone a physical release of it. And all these things were coming out. Now, I know, again, that it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of manpower to go and put into a proper translation. I mean, I've read countless different interviews with teams from all over the world, from ones that have worked with Gaijin Works, ones who have worked with Working Designs, ones who worked with Axis, I always forget how you say the one company, and Atlas themselves. Atlas being the main company that I've always focused on, because I fucking love the shit out of the company. But they had talked about all the different steps that they have to go through, the amount of time that they have to work on each individual step, and it's interesting, because we just kind of take it for granted that it's translated, now it's done, now we got the game, now we're playing it and enjoying it, and that's really it. But we don't think about what it took to make that game into something that we could go and enjoy. And they had talked about that, and I understand all that shit. I understand that it can be really difficult to translate certain things because it doesn't work well, because they're making like all these different jokes and references and puns and shit towards things that we might not have the equivalent over here. So now there's a bunch of shit that's lost in translation, and it's a hell of a lot worse if that's something that's very detrimental to the overall storyline. Like, this story arc is going to fall apart unless we figure out something that will work, and we can go and spin that shit for English-speaking audiences. You know, then there's the programming side of it. If the game wasn't programmed in such a way that you can go and mess with all the text within the game, let alone all the voice dialogue, then that's something that they have to go and they have to begin programming themselves. So that's a bunch of extra effort on top of the translation itself. And then all the QA testing and having to go and mess with that shit, send it off to a company who has to go and give their approval on this shit, eventually gets printed and pressed and then shipped out. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It's insane. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take that actual article that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, I'll end up pulling it up, and I'll put that link in the description just so that you can get some kind of a semblance and an idea of what efforts go into it. But is crowdfunding really the way? I mean, if this is the only option, again, then it's better than nothing. But do these companies do they absolutely need to go and do this? Or do you think that they're like, it makes me curious if they're just abusing crowdfunding because they're too lazy or they don't want to cough up the money or whatever the fuck it is. There's a lot of different things. Like I said, I'm kind of split on it because I see it from both sides of the fence. And it makes me curious about it, if companies are being honest and truthful. Do they really need to go and use crowdfunding? Or could they really just go and do this shit on their own and, you know, they've got the fucking people there. I mean, fuck, I know so many different translation teams that work for free. And they've made some of the best damn translations in the entire world. Whether it was for anime, whether it was for manga, whether it was for video games. There's tons of shit out there that I've seen these teams work on, and they do it out of love of the product. And that's all. They did it as a fan service. That's all. It was nothing but a service to fans. And I'm just like, so you're telling me that you're this big fucking corporation and you can't make this shit happen? They're doing it for free and doing it in a pretty efficient time, yet you can't. I know ones that would fucking pay to work for the companies, let alone actually get hired by you and have the talents that you need to go and coordinate this kind of shit. Just, I don't know. Either way, opinions and thoughts, feelings done in the comment box. How do you feel about this? Do you think that these companies need to resort to crowdfunding? Or do you think that this is probably the best answer to one of the unresolved questions that we've had, and that's, why aren't we getting this game over here? Because that's the truth. We've asked that question time and again. Why aren't we getting this game over here? And it sucks. And we'll go and we'll see it on sale all the time over in Japan. Importing it, don't know what the fuck's being said inside the game. Then you have to look up a translation guide that somebody else made, but they didn't finish, so you only know what's going on with a portion of the game. And you're having to go and keep a fucking tablet open and then play the game and then look at that and keep fucking cross-checking all this shit, so you're like, oh, that's what that, oh, okay. Do you know how many fucking times people have to do that? And a short answer could be, just learn Japanese. Yes, because everybody's just fucking learning Japanese. I'm turning Japanese, I really think so. Sorry, song jumped in my head. Anyway, this is AlphaOmegaSin, as always, nerds, nerdettes, and gamers game the fuck on!